Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here, returning to you very late tonight for this next album review, and then I'll have the final album review for an August 8th release for, I guess the Hailstorm album will be tomorrow in the morning or afternoon sometime. But this is for Jonas Brothers' new record, Greetings from Your Hometown, that I got a chance to listen to tonight to see what I was going to think of the 14 tracks of this 45-minute record. So I'm going to discuss what I listened to for this 45-minute record overall in its entirety of 14 songs, that it consists of 14 tracks, and let you know my thoughts on this record overall. So let's dive into this album review tonight. It starts with I Can't Lose, which is a pretty good song. I think Joe Jonas and Nick Jonas sounded good with their harmonizing in this track. And this track did very well. It's a pretty nice song, very catchy. The beat's very catchy, and it overall executed very well. So 5 out of 5 goes to this track. It's well deserved for it. Tables is the next song, and that was a pretty catchy one too. The chorus is the highlight on the song, and the verses are pretty strong too, with Joe Jonas and Nick Jonas singing their verses, and it's sounding pretty solid for the most part with the overall mixing and execution. Excuse my yawning. Like I said, I'm gonna be going to bed. It's getting pretty late doing this review, but I wanted to get it out to you guys. But overall, Tables is a 5 out of 5. Strong track. Love Me to Heaven is a pretty good song in its own way. Not one of my favorite ones, but it sounds nice for how Joe Jonas was singing it, and also Nick Jonas singing some parts in the track. With I think the first verse or second verse, it was a combination of it, of their vocals, and they both contributed to different verses and choruses. But overall, I think Love Me to Heaven is a pretty good song in its own way, 4.75 out of 5. No Time to Talk. This one did have an influence of the Stayin' Alive song from the 70s. That track, it's a disco track. And overall, it kind of takes like a little bit of an influence of that track and just throws it in with the melody overall. I thought it was something else, but I know I've heard that melody before. I guess it was from that track, Stayin' Alive. But overall, No Time to Talk was a pretty good song, so I think it did pretty well for the execution. Even though there was a little bit of copying with that copy paste of the melody and how they copy pasted that track from the 70s, Stayin' Alive. It takes some of influence of that track and throws it into this track, and it just, I don't know if it works, but I guess it does, and they got permission to do that. So 5 out of 5. Backwards is a strong track, in its own way. It's not one of my favorite tracks, but it did fairly well for the execution. So it's a 4.75 out of 5. It sounded good with the melody structure, and overall Joe Jonas and Nick Jonas' singing and harmonizing in this was pretty solid. Loved You Better featuring Dean Lewis. Pretty good song. It plays it pretty safe for the most part. Nice melody too for this track. And overall was Dean Lewis's verse coming in close to the end of the song. Sounded pretty good. He did pretty well with it, with his verse. And Nick Jonas came in the second verse and the chorus too. But Joe Jonas did very well with his moment in the track, with the opening aspect of the track, which is the first verse and first chorus. So 4.75 out of 5. Greetings from Your Hometown is a which features Switchfoot. Yes, Switchfoot. Very strong track. I really enjoyed this track. I think the execution of this song did pretty well, and overall was how just the track sounded overall, soundscape wise, it did very well. And Switchfoot's moment, I think the lead singer of Switchfoot is featured in this track, but it overall did fairly well. So 5 out of 5. When You Know is a pretty good song in its own way. I'd give it a 4.75 out of 5. The melody sounds pretty good. The mixing and production in this is pretty strong. And overall, I mean, the harmonizing from Nick and Joe are pretty solid for the most part in this track. There are a few critiques that I have with this song, but I overall think it's a solid track. Sorry about my yawning. I'm going to be yawning a few times in this video because it's very late where I'm at. It's like 3 a.m. doing this review. But I wanted to get it out to you just to get it done, and then I'm going to definitely crash and try to get some sleep. So, yeah, 4.75 out of 5 for When You Know. Heat of the Moment is a pretty good song. It's not one of my personal favorite tracks, but it did fairly well for the execution. So 4.75 out of 5. I think Nick and Joe's singing potential was pretty solid for the most part. Then comes Bully, which is a good song, but not one of my favorites. Probably the least favorite on this record. But it is a good track for how it sounds. A serviceable enough track to get you through this song and see what you think of it for yourself. But overall, 4.5 out of 5. Waste No Time, pretty good song in its own way. I'd give it a 4.75 out of 5. I think Joe Jonas and Nick Jonas's harmonizing vocals structurally sounded very good in this track. So, yeah. Lucky is the 12th track on the record, and it's a good song. It's very melodic, too, with the melody and how it's structured is sounding overall. So I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5 for this track. Mirror to the Sky was the second to last track before you get to the closing track on the record, and overall did very well. Joe Jonas and Nick Jonas's singing potential in this is very good. It has a catchy melody too, and a catchy beat for sure. So it's a pretty catchy song for when the chorus comes in. So I'd give it a 4.75 out of 5. And finally, we get to the closing track, Slow Motion featuring Marshmello, which closes out the record pretty well in its own way. I'm going to give it a 4.75 out of 5. It was a very short song, but it did execute very effectively with the delivery of the vocals and delivery of the overall production and mixing of the song and how it executed. So, yeah, 4.75 out of 5. So overall, production, mixing, and execution-wise, I think Jonas Brothers' Greetings from Your Hometown album was a good listen. I was more impressed with this album than the Good Charlotte record. I like the Good Charlotte record a little bit, but I don't necessarily love it. I think it was not bad, but it was an average listen. Like I said, there's going to be some albums I'll like and some albums I'll dislike. But overall, for how this record sounded, it's a good listen. I mean, I was enjoying some songs on this record, like I Can't Lose, Tables, No Time to Talk is my favorite. And after that, Greetings from Your Hometown. Excuse my yawning. Greetings from Your Hometown. So give me a second, I gotta pause the video. Sorry about that, guys. My mom was talking to me for a second, so I had to pause the video for a moment. But to continue where I left off, if I were to give Jonas Brothers' Greetings from Your Hometown album a score, it's going to get an 8 out of 10. It's a good listen. Definitely check it out for yourself to see what you think of it. Not the worst thing I've listened to. It's a good listen of a record, but overall, I think with this record, I think they knew what they wanted to do with this one. Like the 2023 record was good too, but it's still a solid follow up to the album from 2023. So, yeah, Greetings from Your Hometown is getting an 8 out of 10 by the Jonas Brothers. Definitely check this record out, see what you think of it for yourself. It's not a bad record, it's a good listen of an album. And with that being said, I'm gonna get going to bed, guys. But you guys have a good rest of your Friday, early Friday night, going into Friday morning pretty soon. And with that being said, I will see you in my next review tomorrow for Hailstorm Everest. And thanks for watching. Have a good night.